What's going on, Illumineers, and welcome back to the madness. For all of you that have come back, thank you so much. For all you guys just jumping in, I appreciate you so much. It's been awesome, but let's talk about what you came for, and that's this shiftless SteelSong plus the Ruby Sapphire, what I would do going into that matchup. And before we get to what this deck list is, let's talk about what SteelSong is trying to do in the Ruby Sapphire matchup. How do you get the win? And ultimately, you have to understand that you're not going to win late game. Like you can, right? Like if you play the Chin Pose, if you play the Cinderellas, you can win in the late game. But ultimately, they're going to win. They have the better top decks, they have the better control, they have more ink, they have everything they need to beat you in late game. So that means that you have to win in the early game. And playing around, well, what if they have this card? You're going to see in the video where if I had tried to play around the what if they have be prepared, I would have lost. Like that's just it. And I just said I forced them to have it. And that's one thing you're going to have to do, and that's one thing you can do really well with this deck. So, into a Ruby Sapphire matchup, what are you trying to keep? If you're running this list, or if you're running any SteelSong list, you're keeping the early cards. You almost always keep the Smee, you almost always keep the Piglets. If you're running this list, you keep the Binja. You want stuff that quests for 2. If you're on the play, there's a good opportunity for you to keep Whole New World as well, especially if you have Gaston, because they're going to have a hard time ice blocking to take out Gaston. Aerial can be a little bit more risky if you only have Aerial, because then they have an easy way to take out Aerial with ice block Sizu, but that's going to be almost impossible for them to do. I actually don't know a world where they're able to do that. So Gaston or Ariel should work just fine, actually, when you're on the play. If you're playing the shift line, again, if you're playing the shift line and you have the shift line, then you probably keep Whole New World on the play so you can play all those cards out and you can go super wide again. So keeping Whole New World is a safe bet as long as you have the ability to play Whole New World on turn 3. But outside of that, you're looking at just going as wide as humanly possible and just beat them. If they have the answer, they have the answer. And that's kind of it. That's if they like you just have to hope they don't, as they do brick often, as they don't always have the answers because they have to keep suboptimal hands, so they don't brick, and they need to ramp, so they might keep ramp cards. So that's really the big piece is go wide, keep Whole New World if you have the ability to play Whole New World on turn 3, so you can go even wider. Um, I wouldn't recommend keeping Pete. I wouldn't recommend keeping Bare Necessities unless you want to quest with Bare Necessities with Cindy. Um, but that, or sorry, seeing Bare Necessities with Cindy. But that's going to be a risky play if you're on the draw. On the play, you can do it because they're going to draw 2 cards, and maybe even on your turn 3 you do it because they've probably used visions or something at this point. So if you're going to keep Bare Necessities and you want to play Bare Necessities, I would sing it on your turn 3, not on turn 2, because you want to give them as many opportunities to draw into a Fishbone Quill as possible. So that's going to be the kind of the big stuff. Go really wide. Bare Necessities on 3 is pretty good when you're on the play. It's a little harder to argue keep it on the draw because they already have so few cards in hand. Binja is a great keep if you play this. Whole New World, great keep. As far as this deck list goes, if you guys want to jump straight into this deck list, some changes that I will probably make is I want a 4th Smee, so I probably cut a big Cindy for a 4th Smee, and I might I'm going to look at cutting 2 Bare Necessities for 2 Draw Songs, which will either be the Be Our Guest, which lets you look at the top 4 cards and pull 1 character, or When Will My Life Begin, which lets you draw 1 card and an opposing character can't challenge. It's mostly just for the draw. So just because you want to be able to keep drawing cards if you don't see Whole New World or you don't have a good opportunity for Rapunzel. So that's just a quick look at this list. The list itself was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it so far. I'm going to keep trying it, and you'll see why it went so well for me this game. And a shift line might have lost me the game because I wouldn't have been able to go as wide as I did. So it's a good game to highlight this list. But those are my overall thoughts for this kind of deck into red blue or into with SteelSong into red blue. Go wide, beat them before they get there. Force them to have the answers. Don't play cautious because you can't afford to play super cautious because every turn that they have going into later game is your percentage of winning is dropping more and more. So just play it out. Quest to 20. If you get to 20, you win. It doesn't matter how strong their late game is. With that, guys, appreciate you being here. Let's jump into the commentary. I hope you enjoy the match, and I will see you around. All right, so let's jump into the commentary, guys. So this was a match I had against a Ruby Sapphire player early on, and this was the second match that I had with the shiftless deck. So keep in mind, there's not a lot of play with this deck yet, but I wanted to highlight this video because it kind of showed what I'm hoping to do with this kind of deck. And I think if I would have had a shift, I would have been in a really bad place because without the shift, I was able to go get all my characters down. I didn't lose a character by shifting, things like that. And he also had a relatively good hand, not perfect by any means, but he had the ice block on one. You know, he had a curve. He got to do things. So he kept a hand that you would see a red blue player keeping. Because you have to remember that red blue sometimes they just have to make suboptimal hands work. They can't afford to go and ink a whole lot of cards because they can brick themselves very easily. So, with that being said, we just finished the shuffle, and we're about to see my opening hand. And I think this one I was pretty happy with my opening hand actually, but um, oh, that's right. So we had three strength to raging fire, so we can definitely put those back. We had the aerial, Cindy, and Smee. So we had a great early curve. Seeing Smee is massive for turn two. You want to see Smee or Piglet. If you could see both, even better. But this way, I ended up keeping one strength because it lets me answer, if they're playing the item deck, it lets me answer Queen as soon as they play Queen, and it's also an inkable. So again, guys, I'm a huge fan of strength, as you all know. So generally, I will almost always keep strength when I can. Worst case scenario, it's an inkable, right? So we go ahead, we keep four, we throw three back. We keeping the Cindy, the Smee, the aerial, and the strength. And I don't remember what we pulled back. But I know one thing that I really wanted to see was the Benja for this matchup. I run two. I'm running two for Lantern, Decandio Song. I'm running two for this matchup in particular. So looks like we did pull a second Benja and an Ursula maybe. So I need to do better about showing my hand here. I apologize, guys, but we ink the Smee. So we pulled a second Smee. So we ink the Smee and play Cindy. Happy with that play. I wouldn't do anything differently. We do have the daisies, so there is an argument that you can play Daisy. And if I had Daisy, then if I had Daisy over Cindy, then I probably would have played Daisy turn one here. One of the few matchups that I would. So here we draw the second Benja. So I know we're gonna have an interesting turn coming up, but I ink the aerial because I just want to get the tempo going. That's the big play here. Is I just want to get tempo, get on the ground, and start hitting the road. And we'll pause it. We'll pause it here for a second because a lot of people might question that. I had another aerial in hand, and inking an aerial always hurts because I did. Well, you guys will see, but I do pull a whole new world off of aerial, and so I don't get super punished. But I could have if I had pulled any song or anything off of that, then I could have been in a rough position by inking that second aerial because that second aerial was a chance for me to dig for more whole new worlds. Now, it wouldn't have been worst case scenario because I had the Smee, I have the Benja. So if I would have if I wouldn't have gotten the second whole new world, or if I wouldn't have gotten the whole new world off of aerial, then I was still able to go wide. And that's what I was planning on anyways, is because they're about to lose a bunch of their hand and get into not top deck mode, but they could very soon. So I can just go wide and hope that they don't draw a B prep. And that's what I was thinking here is let's ink the aerial for the sake of going wide. And so they ink a Tamatoa and they play a Visions here. So like I said, they have a good curve. They would have preferred a Popsicle on 1. They probably would have preferred a Tippo on 2, but they have a good curve here with Ice Block into Visions. So like I said, I didn't win this match just because they got super unlucky. And so we'll jump ahead a little bit. Um, so All right, so there was a little bit of miscommunication, but I realized it's my turn. His mic kept going in and out, so there was some hiccups, but we draw into Daisy. So here I immediately regretted inking that first Smee because I could have gone Smee Daisy here, but that's not it's whatever. Now one thing, the reason this turn took me a second is because I didn't know if I wanted to save both Binjas, and I could have played Binja here to take out Ice Block, and then I could have played Binja again next turn to take out Quill if he played Quill on turn 3. So that's kind of my hiccup right here is just trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. And ultimately, I inked Binja and I went aerial because I just wanted to dig for stuff. And um or no, I went okay, sorry. I misspoke. So let's talk about that. So I went Daisy because again, I'm trying to beat them, right? I'm trying to get to the point where I can just quest out because it's getting to 20. So that's why I went the Daisy and I left the 2 inks sitting on the table. And this is like I said, this is where I regretted inking the first Smee. Uh but I don't think I would have done it any differently. There is an argument to be made that I could have inked Strength of a Raging Fire and kept the Smee, and that would have paid off here. But again, I didn't know if they were the Queen item variant. So if I would have inked the Strength and then they played Queen, that's a huge boost for them. Where they're going to play Queen, they're going to quest next turn, and then they're going to start pulling items. And then now it really becomes a race. So I there is a good argument though that I should have just played this, kept the Smees and gone even wider. But so I play the Daisy here. I don't mind giving the cards. Again, I'm trying to get to 20. It doesn't matter if they give them a big Sizu if they can't play the big Sizu. It doesn't matter if I give them a Maui if they can't play the Maui. So, but you'll see that they do have the answer in hand anyways. They tap 3 and they play little Sizu to take out Daisy. So, which good. Now, I don't know personally. Yeah, no, and that was the best move. So, so they take that out, and that's when I end up going into my aerial turn. Let's fast forward a little bit, get through some of the talking. Um, Now at this point, I figured they weren't playing the Queen variant, so I took out Little Sizu because I didn't want them to be able to shift soon into Big Sizu. They couldn't have done it this turn coming up, but if they still had Sizu, they could have shifted into Big Sizu on their next turn, and that is effectively a good game, right? So I didn't want to risk that. I didn't care what else they might have been able to play. Little Caesar had to be taken out. That's not something I could risk because Little Caesar could have also taken out my Smee, which really would have hurt a lot as well. So here they end up going Fishbone Quill, which is great for me. It's good and bad. They get their Fishbone down and they go to 5 ink, but that's why I've been holding on to this Benja. We'll fast forward a little bit and Popsicle, Fishbone, go to 5 ink. They had to ink the Brawl because they're probably bricked at this point, I would imagine. So I'm sure that hurt a little bit. And I wonder, I would be curious, like if we had Sailor on, like if, just seeing that, if he would have kept the brawl and instead of playing Fishbone, played brawl to take out Ariel, or just let me whole new world. But he didn't, so I played Benja. I took out the Fishbone Quill, and then I inked. And do I play a 2-drop? Nope, I didn't have anything else in hand, so I inked the Strength, and we're going whole new world. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. Um, Now, one thing that I didn't do is, yeah, so we go Ursula. You see my hand. I have 2 Rapunzels, so I didn't. That's why I didn't quest with Smee here, because I had free card draw coming up, and I'd rather just guarantee that I keep the Smee. So I held off for 1 turn, and we'll fast forward a little bit. This is where I think we see a Medusa come down. Yep. So Medusa takes out the aerial. That's a good play. Maybe take out Lawrence, or not Lawrence, but Benja instead, because it's questing for 2. But I think aerial's the right play. So it's my turn. I continue to just go wide. I was really hoping I'd see a Pete, but that's okay. No Pete. So we play the Rapunzel to heal. Hopefully see a Pete, and still no Pete or Bear necessities. And then we end up just questing out, I believe. So let's fast forward a little bit. Because at this point, there's no reason for me to be cautious. He can only take out 2 things max. But if he B preps, he can take all of it out. So I'm just hoping. He did lose a B prep on the whole new world, so that was phenomenal for me. And he had a Medusa and a B prep. That's what he lost on whole new world. So um, now, is this where I made the mistake? I did make a misplay here. And let me see. Nope, it wasn't here. Never mind. So it might have been a different game. But I played the Daisy. Now, this is an interesting part. So I played the Daisy here, and I almost didn't because I didn't want to play into B prep. But I played the Daisy with that idea of if they don't have B prep, they lose. Right? That's it. If I would have not played Daisy, then I would have not had the means to end the game. So I played Daisy to say, play B prep or you're going to lose the game. And I think that was still the right move. Like, there was no reason for me to be cautious here. And that's something, again, the longer this match goes on, the worse off it's going to be for you when they start getting the more ink, when they can start doing these bigger turns. So you just need to end the game. And if they have the answer, they just have the answer. But meanwhile, I go Daisy here. I still had like 5 or 6 cards in my hand. Rapunzel, so a couple bigger cards that I could have just laid them out again next turn and said, have the answer some more. So they take out 2, and I don't quite have board right at this moment, but I have, you're going to see the best top deck that I could have asked for, because it gives me exactly 20, and I pull the big Cindy. So let's see if I get it. Let's fast forward, and there's the big Cindy. So I counted it out to make sure I was right, played the big Cindy, and that was game. So that's kind of so it was a good first match. It was a good first match for this deck. It was a good first match for to highlight for this deck. And let me. So it went how I wanted it to go. Now, the big thing to keep in mind, like I said, is when you're playing red blue, you don't want to try and take it to late game with them. Like, you have options, right? You have the chin pose, you have the Cinderellas, you have the fills to stop B prep. But the more scars they run, the more big Sizus they run, the easier it's going to be for them to take out these little guys. So you have, if they have the B prep, if they have the answer, they have the answer. Sometimes though, you just have to play into it. I didn't see any Pete's, I didn't see any bare necessities, but I had a good enough hand that next turn I could have gone, Rapunzel and something else, or I could have played Chin Po to in bodyguard to protect the rest of my stuff. So I had the cards I need to be able to go wide again. So what made the difference that game was, of course, the lore or the Binja early on, but also playing that Daisy the turn before, where I could have kept it and said, play the answer and I'll just go wide again, or play it and say, you better have the answer or else. So, and that's kind of how that match just has to be played out, is just you have to race them. And that is one advantage of Daisy Duck. Like Daisy Duck lets you race very well against Red Blue. It doesn't matter if you give them answers, if they can't play them yet. And that is one thing to consider, though, is earlier they had to ink a brawl because that was their only inkable. And so if I had played Daisy earlier and gave them inkables, then that would hurt as well. So just it's a cautious card. I still stand behind Daisy not being a turn one play into most decks. You can make an argument for red blue, of course, but even then you risk drawing them inkables, which it's always going to hurt. But with that being said, this is the matchup. I hope you guys took something from it, enjoyed it. If you think that I missed something, maybe I should have done something a little differently, let me know in the comments. If you think that, or let me know what you think about the deck. Also, there's a couple changes I already want to make, but we talked about those. So with that being said, I'm going to sign off, guys. Remember, we're staying happy and healthy. That's the whole point. Whether that healthy you're working on is mentally or physically or both, I promise you that healthy directly goes with happy. They work together. Okay, so we work on those. We get to keep doing these fun things. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Join my Discord. I can't wait to talk to you guys about this, and I will see you next time. I'm out.